When we know the information, we awaken to knowledge, we respond with action, and we can empower others. Welcome to the K.A.R.E podcast. I am Runsi, the founder of Ovarcome, as well as health and awareness advocate, and it's my pleasure to have you with us today. My first guest for this podcast series is Shannon Miller. She is an Olympic gymnast, a survivor of ovarian cancer, who we call our Ovarcomer, and also an entrepreneur and author. Let's take a deep dive with Shannon on her life, her journey, her inspiration, and her spirit of overcoming. So, Shannon, you have shared that your ovarian cancer was found at a routine OBGYN appointment, and one that you almost postponed because the life for all of us, like yours was too busy. So looking back, what does that moment teach women about the tension between caring for everyone else and making their own health a priority? So what was your own takeaway from it in terms of the importance of self-care that you would like to share with all of us?
Well, thank you so much for having me on today. It's good to see you again. I think we absolutely have to make our health a priority, and it can be difficult. It gets lost in all of the day-to-day thousands of things that we need to do, but that's the best way that we can care for all of those who depend on us, and it's the best way we can take care of ourselves. When we focus on our health, whether that's nutrition, sleep, physical activity, mental health, or getting to those doctor's appointments, we're able to show up more productive, more energized, I think better prepared. And it's not just about us. And that's what I try to remember now. Because before my diagnosis, I could have told you I didn't have any symptoms, but I did. I just they got lost in the shuffle of taking care of a new baby. When it was just fully on devoted to him and taking care of everything and everyone else around me, and not really focused on the stomach aches or the bloating or anything else. But when we focus on our health, we're better prepared to show up for ourselves and for everyone else. And the other great thing is we set a great example for those around us. And that's what I've learned as I've gotten older is, it sets a great example for my kids that I focus on trying to make the right choices nutrition wise and getting enough sleep and going to work out. It's important for them to see that that's important.
And also, it's the whole oxygen mask story, right? When you're on an airline, you put on your mask first before you take care of the person next to you. I mean, that is so essential for like starting off. It was a fantastic message that you shared with us because, oftentimes we as women, like you said, we put ourselves last in the order of importance. But if you don't take care of yourselves, then we cannot take care of the others around us. So thank you for that beautiful and important message. So next, I wanted to ask you, as an Olympic gymnast, your career depended on knowing your body with extraordinary precision, right? So yet after the diagnosis, you realized that, you had been explaining away, as you just mentioned, explaining away symptoms like bloating or the pain and the weight loss and everything else that came with it. Why do you think even highly body aware women, such as you, can miss ovarian cancer symptoms? And what should these persistent symptoms trigger in our minds that you would like to, like send a broad message across to everyone listening?
Well, I think it's so important, and there are a variety of reasons, of course, and I hear a lot of them as we talk about them as I travel the country. There are a lot of reasons we miss these signs and symptoms. We're busy. Sometimes we simply don't think about every little issue because we power through. The symptoms can seem so benign. What woman isn't bloated from time to time? That's just not. It doesn't signal a red flag for us. But there are other reasons, right? Not seeing a doctor for fear of getting bad news. I hear that a lot. It's a very human reaction. I mean, really, all of these are very human reactions. One of the things I started doing was starting a journal because if I don't write it down, I won't remember that I had a stomach ache last Thursday because I've done 10,000 things since then. So writing things down, you look at the ovarian cancer symptoms or other symptoms of other issues, anything that's different for you, write it down. Quick note in your notes app or on your calendar or on a sketch of paper, just writing something down helps it to be more real and it helps you remember. And then if it persists for more than 2 weeks, then that's when you might say, you know what, maybe I need to go ask a doctor. Maybe I just need to kind of make sure that this isn't anything that I need to be concerned about. And of course, if it persists beyond that, then you get loud and and you make sure that you are your own best advocate for your health.
Thank you. So you have also described in your, interviews that the waiting period, right? Knowing that there was a mass, but not knowing whether it was benign or malignant, and just going through the whole process, like it's emotional journey, right? So what helped you survive that uncertainty, and what do you wish clinicians or loved ones understood about that in between time between a diagnosis, before a diagnosis is clear, and what do you wish you knew to navigate this uncertainty better that you would like to share with others who are in your shoes right now or would be in the future?
Yes, this is such an important question. We tend to focus on the treatment portion of the journey, which is very, very important. But man, that wait and observe is what they call it, wait and observe, and it is excruciating. I would say my faith is the only thing that got me through because no one understood why it was so hard for me. To me, it felt everyone around me was like, well, they figured if someone wasn't rushing me into surgery or giving me a specific diagnosis, then everything must be fine. Oh, it's going to be okay. You're going to be fine. My favorite one was, "Oh, you were an athlete. You'll be good." Like, I don't think cancer really cares if I did balance beam 20 years ago, but thank you. So I know, looking back, I know they were doing their absolute best to try to make me feel better. And I have done the same thing for others when I just really don't know what to say. So something comes out and it's probably the wrong thing. So I understand. And again, I appreciate the thought behind it. But when you go through every day like a zombie, I was told not to run, not do yoga, not work out too much, don't move too much. They didn't want it to rupture before they even understood what it was. It was it was like I had this time bomb inside of me and I'm supposed to just wait and go through every day as if things were normal and they weren't. And that was really, really hard mentally, physically, emotionally. I kind of got to the point where I didn't really want to talk to anyone because I didn't want to hear that it would be fine because how would they know? So it becomes very isolating as well. And so I think that's a very lonely place to be. Now, on the medical side of it, I can tell you that I felt like my care team was really good during this phase about making sure that I understood they weren't just waiting around. I was supposed to wait and observe, but they were not. They were actively doing tests, they were waiting for results. They weren't just sitting on the sidelines. They were being very active. They were communicating with other physicians across the country because I had a very rare form of a very rare cancer. So I think having the medical team communicate consistently during that time is so important and so needed because that's who you want to hear from, right? Not the people that have never looked at your chart, but the people who know what they're doing. If they're active and they're saying, okay, we don't know yet, but we're working on it. That was really helpful.
And just as you were speaking, this thought came to my mind that while you were going through this process, this journey, this pause, so to speak, were there any other overcomers that you got a chance to speak to? And if not, do you think that that is something that would help someone else now, that between that in that pause
Yeah.
period, to be
Yeah.
able to speak to someone who has walked that path before?
Great question. I did not. There were very few people that even knew I was dealing with this because
Yeah.
there was nothing to tell anyone. I had no idea what was going on. So I didn't even reach that point where I thought I should even try to find someone to talk to. I didn't know anyone who had had ovarian cancer. And so for me, I think it would be really beneficial, extremely beneficial to be able to hear other survivor stories, whether that's talking one-on-one or just hearing their story, but to have someone who understands, who has that lived experience, say, okay, I know, wait and observe, it stinks, you're not going to like it, but here's the thing, and here's how to communicate. That would be so beneficial. So I would definitely encourage people to find those stories of hope and find those people with lived experience and can kind of help you walk through the journey.
Absolutely. And I do believe that, I saw in my mom's case, and I've talked to enough of our overcomers to understand that, everyone, this journey is unique, even though the caregivers or the family members love and care for you so much, but it is just not possible for someone who has not walked this journey to kind of truly appreciate what this is about. So talking to someone who has gone through a similar path is critical. So thank you for mentioning that. So you talked about your rare ovarian cancer diagnosis. So we know ovarian cancer is rare, but then germ cell ovarian cancer is even more rare, right? So which is also very different from the typical high-grade serous epithelial ovarian cancers that typically occur. So as someone with a large platform for awareness, how do you educate the public that ovarian cancer is not a single disease, right? And why does that distinction matter for patients and family members asking questions about treatment, prognosis, follow-ups, and just the overall care?
Well, it certainly is important for family members and friends to understand because they're all going to get on Google and and try to look things up. And that's actually one of the first things that my oncologist said because I was actually hosting radio shows at the time, and we were actually about to have a show in January. This was about a week after my official diagnosis, and I still thought I was just going to completely work through everything, and he knew that I had this physician on that was going to be talking about ovarian, and then we were also talking about cervical cancer for January. And he said, you need to be very clear in your research. This is what type you have. There's all these other types. So it was important to understand that up front.
Yeah.
Because you don't want to get too far ahead of yourself and start looking at things that don't even pertain to you. But it is so important that there are so many different types of cancer, but also different types of treatment. Chemo is not one chemo. There are so many different types. And so that's important to remember. It's important to remember that everyone is at a different place in their journey, their background, where their health is at when they're diagnosed, the phase of life. Like every little thing is so personal. And so, one thing that I was kind of warned against in the beginning was listen to survivor stories, share. That is like, those are great things, but don't compare your journey to someone else. If you're not feeling great and they're playing tennis, like just it's okay. Everyone is running their own race. It's your personal journey. So wherever you are is right for you, and that's okay. And so I think that's really important. And the only other thing I would say is go into the internet, go into social media. Can be really great for research. It can also be terrifying. So we're all going to do it. Just be careful of your sources and making sure that they're reputable sources, and then checking what you learn with your personal care team is so important because it is an individual journey.
Absolutely. And like you mentioned very importantly, that every ovarian cancer diagnosis, medically speaking, too, is unique. Like, and the treatment patterns may be different, and where you are in that whole journey is also different for every person. So even though, having a community in the strict scientist term is very good. Just from a medical standpoint, just, understanding what type of ovarian cancer you have, what is your treatment pattern, what are the challenges. I think it's best understood under the guidance of your care team and provider, and not so much on the internet. I mean, like you said, I mean, many of the information that we find on internet can be very credible, but some of them are also not. So it is important to make that distinction. So thank you. I also know that you went through surgery followed by the aggressive chemotherapy. As someone who has trained, you're a world-renowned athlete and gymnast, someone who was trained through pain, the pressure, and the perfectionism and all that. What did chemotherapy teach you? I'm almost asking in the sense, how did it humble you, kind of a thing, about the limits of mental toughness? And when did you realize that the toughness also meant asking for help from the others?
Yeah. Well, I can definitely tell you humbling is the correct word.
Yeah.
It was. And I think there's always a mentality involved. The mental side of sport is so important. Any elite athlete will tell you that. And it is in life and in health. But I don't know if I would classify it as mental toughness, or maybe I just didn't feel like it was mental toughness at the time. It, not in the toughness that we think of, right? Not in the brawn, not in the, "Oh, I'm just going to power through." It's about finding, for me at least, it was about finding something good to focus on, even during the really tough days. For me, a good day was often, can I get out of bed, get dressed, walk twice around the dining room table? And that was a good day, and I could feel good about that. Eventually, I would go on a 10-minute walk with my son, and that's what kind of revitalized me. That gave me a literal fresh air, but also a breath of fresh air with my emotions, with my mentality. So when we think about mentally tough, I want people to think about it as just mentally moving forward,
Mm.
finding that next forward step, that just next incremental step that makes you feel like, okay, I got it today. I did something that felt good today. But you are very right about asking for help. And I can tell you, I learned that too late in the game. I wanted to handle this. I wanted to handle it without bothering anyone, without being a burden. But that's not the way it works, right? And I learned that there is strength in not only accepting help when it's offered, but also in asking for help when it's needed. And it is so critical to realize that early on and just kind of be at one with it. People want to help, let them, because you're going to need it. And that's just one extra load that's taken off your plate.
Absolutely. So, speaking of asking for help, this is a great segue to my next question is that, we know that in gymnastics, no one reaches the Olympics alone, right? There are coaches, trainers, teammates, and family members, friends and family. So, during treatment, you have said you had to learn how to use your medical team and, like resources and not suffer silently. So, what does it look like for a patient to become an active member of our own care team, and rather than just trying to, go through the steps of the treatment quietly? And what tips and guidance would you have for our overcomers who are in active treatment today, and just to bring that team, gold medal team mindset into this, how would you define this for us?
Well, it's such an important point, and I'm going to preface this by explaining I completely failed at this in the beginning and through, I would say, a good portion of chemo, because again, you don't want to complain. Everyone's already kind of making a big fuss over you, and I just didn't want to be that person that was kind of like just taking everything in. And I'm used to being the one that handles everything for everyone, and it's just a weird position to be in. And so it wasn't until I kind of flipped the script and said, nope, this is my time to focus on healing and focus on getting better. And that's how I can be here best for everyone else. So yes, that's a very important point. I'm much better at it now, but during treatment, I wasn't great at speaking up. And there was this one particularly bad day that I had that really changed the game for me. I was in the chemo chair and, my fourth of however many hours that day. And the nausea was so bad with me. I just had such a hard time handling the nausea. And then I had lost my hair, which your scalp kind of hurts, and neuropathy setting, like just all the things are just all coming on. And that was just a really bad day. And I'm sitting there not saying a thing, just dealing with it. And a nurse came over and she kneeled down by my chair and she took my hand and she said, "Shannon, if you don't tell me what's going on, I can't help you. This is not only my job, this is my passion. This is what I do every day. I wake up and I want to know how I can help someone." And the floodgates opened, and you just kind of, it all came out, and she was able to get me some help with some certain things. And it just, the mentality changed to, why am I not asking for help? Because to your point, I didn't get successful as a gymnast doing it myself. I had wonderful coaches, teammates, parents, people who set up the equipment, that, just every little bit. And I was never afraid to ask for help because I knew asking for help would help me do better. So why wouldn't I do that in the most important portion of my entire life in this fight against cancer? And so I just, a lot of my advocacy these days is trying to help people change that mentality from the, I don't want to bother anyone, I'll just do this, I'll be okay on my own, I'll suffer through it, to why? No. If people want to help, you're actually blessing them by allowing them to help. Because if you've ever been on the other side, where you've been the one asking a neighbor, a friend, a coworker, a family member, how can I help? You desperately want to know, and anything that they can tell you to do, you're like, yes, I'll do it. I'll do it now.
Yeah.
So know that asking for help is also a blessing to others.
And that's such an important point, because I was just thinking, for people who are outside of this core treatment group, if you will, someone who wants to really truly help you go through this process, but doesn't really know how to, what is the best way to do this, will ask you, how may I help? And with the best intentions, right? And so so it is important that, as overcomers, or as someone who's going through that treatment, it may be important for that person to actually mention, these are the ways you can come in and help do the laundry, or walk the dog for me, or maybe perhaps cook, and bring me some dinner, kind of a thing. So that way you are giving them what they want to do, and in the process you are also getting the things done that you would like help with. So that communication is so important. And we'll talk about a few of your initiatives that you have done just exactly to address these things as we go down the questions. But that communication is so important, that, because majority of the people who are not being treated but want to help, just putting myself in that shoes, I feel that, I want to say the right thing at all times, right? And so it's just, I'm speaking for others. I know here that I would love to know what is the best way to help someone that I love, that's going through something life-changing like this. If that person would just tell me, it would be so much easier for both of us, right? So
Exactly.
yeah. So you talked about this briefly, that you were a young mother when you were diagnosed, right? And your treatment raised all the fertility questions very quickly, as with, new mothers. So what do you wish every newly diagnosed younger patient knew about all these fertility preservation conversations that happen, especially when cancer decisions or treatment decisions are happening fast and furious, right? And share with us how younger patients, in your opinion, should advocate for their rights to know about their fertility options prior to any action being taken. And the reason why I ask this and emphasize on this is because we have talked to patients, younger patients, who have told us that, they were just wheeled into an OR and told later as they're recovering that they could never be a mom again. So that is tough for someone to not know what she's walking into. So would love your thoughts because you were once a young mother diagnosed, and tell us about your journey with this.
It is so important. And how do you know what you don't know, right? If you haven't been through this experience, how would you even possibly know to ask ahead of time? Okay, now by the way, can you just make sure you tell me? It's something that we have to be ahead of, and it's so important to, again, it comes back to communication. It comes back to asking a lot of questions, and it also comes back to kind of not slowing your treatment down, but slowing your mind and your conversation down, because the emotion can speed things up.
Yeah.
The emotion can cause you to literally not hear things or not ask things that are so important. And so, um, I'll get to this in a little bit, but making sure there's someone with you during appointments is so important, because they'll think of things that you didn't.
Yeah.
They'll remember things that you didn't. So that's so important. But communication is key. Education is key. Everyone is at a different journey. And I'm not a fertility specialist, and I'm sure there's a lot more available now than there was 15 years ago when I was going through it. But it is so important to learn all of your options, talk about all of your options, take a breath so you can make a decision based on what is right for you, and be able to think not just in the moment, but also long term. And that's really, really hard to do. But you've got to kind of have these plan A, plan B, plan C, because quite frankly, your oncologist may not know what they're going to see once they get in there. I know that mine wasn't sure, and I was very fortunate. He was very upfront with me. When I was kind of in that last appointment before I found out I would need to be going into surgery pretty quickly, our son was just over a year old. We're planning to start trying for a second child,
Yeah.
and we were asked that day. So, okay, here's the plan. We got to get you into surgery. This is a mass. It's not going away on its own. They still didn't know if it was cancer. They didn't know if it had spread. We just still had a lot of questions, but he wanted to know if he got into surgery and things had spread, did he want me to try to salvage as much as possible and risk maybe it coming back, or not, and where we planning to have more kids, and your mind just goes to mush. And I was just so unprepared for that question. How do I possibly make how do I possibly answer if it's such a future question about, do you ever plan to have more kids? I was 34, and that was really hard in that moment. I just remember my husband was there with me, and we sat and we we prayed a little bit, and then it just kind of became very clear to me, and this is my personal experience, and it's not the same for everyone, but I just I'm, looking at pictures of my son on my phone and thinking he needs a mother. And so I told the doctor, you do everything you can possibly do to get every bit of the cancer that you can, and if it's meant to be, it'll be, and if not,
Yeah.
then then I'm here.
Yes.
And that was so hard, but we were fortunate that they caught it early, but you have to be prepared. You have to be, mentally prepared for it not going the way that you think. And so that's, again, it's thinking of every option and every plan in a stage where you can barely think straight, which is so hard. So making sure that you have very maybe close trusted people that you can kind of
Yes.
talk with and
Yeah.
talk through is so important. And also understanding that it might happen at stages. We had the kind of the second stage of that when the surgery went well, but then we found out 2 weeks later the malignancy was a higher grade than we originally thought. And so now I had to go through chemotherapy, which might cause problems with my remaining ovary. And so we actually went through, we had 4 weeks before I needed to start chemo to where I could heal from surgery. So we had 1 month to uh, kind of do egg freezing. And so we did that. We thought, well, we're going to do it. And then that way it's just kind of one other option that we have.
That's thank you, Shannon, for sharing it. I know I'm asking questions which are bringing out a lot of emotions, and thoughts in you, and but thank you for being so candid. This is such an important point for younger overcomers that are suddenly faced with something like this, right? And like you said,
Yeah.
no one goes into a medical appointment thinking about this, that you will be given a choice like this, that it's hard to, especially in the moment, to decide something like this. But however, I will also say that it is important that you were given the choice, and you were talked to before, prior to surgery, because no matter what happened, you would know that this was your decision, and that you had
Yes.
an opportunity to think about it and tell your care team this is the way you want to proceed. Because sometimes, I'm not saying always, sometimes some of our overcomers don't even get that option. So it's just kind of decided for them, which in my opinion should not be the case for something like this. But
Yeah.
good or bad, you should be able to own that decision. So
Absolutely.
yeah, thank you. And so um, many people assume that the end of chemo means, life immediately returns to normal, right? But you have spoken about, and you also mentioned just a few minutes ago, this lingering fatigue, the neuropathy, the chemo brain, and the, sometimes very slow recovery after treatment, right? So, what parts of survivorship surprised you the most, and what should we do better for our overcomers after the bell rings? And how do you also, like, finally, this is a question which is top of mind for all of us, is how do you manage the fear of the cancer coming back?
Yeah, well, and I'll kind of take those two separately, but it's funny because as a survivor, I thought, on May 2nd, when I finished my treatment, I would just, I don't know, feel better. I mean, I logically knew I was still going to be bald. I logically knew the neuropathy wasn't going to go away overnight, but I thought I'd be a little less fatigued, a little less nauseous. No, like none of that happened, and so I set myself up for that, even though my physician was very clear that you're not going to feel like yourself for a while. This could take up to a year, is what he told me. And I thought, are you kidding? I mean, this is where I, in my head, said, well, I was an athlete. I mean, I'm pretty healthy. I'll be fine in like 3 months. I got this. I wasn't. It was, I would say, over a year for me. And there's still things that are lingering. And they're okay, but there's things that linger. But it's so important. I think going back to that mentality and talking with other survivors, that is so important. And again, everyone's at a different stage. There are people that do bounce back quickly depending on what treatment they're on, and there are those that takes longer, and that's okay. Your journey is just that. And that's what I want people to remember. Your journey is yours. And there's going to be days you feel good and it's 2 steps forward. And there's going to be days where it's 1 step back. And that's completely normal. But I think overall, it's really important for survivors and their caregiver, their family, their friends, even maybe their boss, to understand that, just because the bell rings doesn't mean everything is, done and we're all good and now you're 100%. Because a lot of times for the people around the survivor that have also been on this journey with you, they have that emotional toll as well. they are ready for that burden to be lifted. They're excited that you're finished treatment, you're through it. They're excited for you. And yet that excitement can kind of come in the form of, okay, well, now you're good. Now you're 100%. So now you can go back to taking care of the house and your job and the kids and, the other 50 things that you used to do. And that's just not how it works. And so I think keeping everyone on the same page as far as, hey, this is a process, this is a journey, is really important. And being able to communicate that is really important. And also making sure, again, as you put, like the medical team needs to be able to communicate that early on, which again, mine did. I just didn't listen, but it came back to me. And then I talked with other survivors, and that made me feel really um I don't know if good's the right word, but it made me feel more comfortable in, hey, I'm not the only one that's not 100% 6 months later, and it's okay.
Before I go, I know you want to address the fear of recurrence thing, but before I go there, I want to quickly ask you this question because it just came to my mind as you were speaking. Is especially someone in the limelight, and after you have finished your treatment, the whole world, like you said, wants to see you back in action, Shannon back in action, doing everything that she was doing before. There's also this, purely physical aspect to the cancer, right? Like losing hair and the skin becoming not what it used to be before, and the nails, and just the overall appearance. And certain times, those things also take time for that to come back to normal.
Yeah.
However, and I don't want to dwell a lot on the appearance issue, but it is important. All of us, it is. I would be amiss if I did not mention this, right? And so,
Yeah.
for you, again, it is a different journey for everyone. When someone told you, "Oh, Shannon, you look great," but you are not looking that way, or you feel you are not looking great, and you have lost this, lost that, and you are constantly examining yourself in the mirror, but somebody tells you that you look fantastic, radiant, whatever that means. What was your experience, kind of dealing with that?
I'm not sure I recall anyone telling me I looked radiant, and I did not. But it's interesting. I think what I learned during that time about myself is that I had to get comfortable with not looking great all the time, and that was okay too. I had a interesting, because my job is often so public. At the time, I was doing a lot of on-camera work, and so in my regular life, I mean, so nauseous and so fatigued. Most of the time, I just could have cared less what I looked like, because I just didn't even have the ability to hardly function, much less care what I looked like. So, when you're at home and whatnot, I'm sure I looked a sight. But then when I had to go to work, I did have to put on the wig and I had to put on the makeup and do all the things because, there's also kids looking. And so it's like, it's just a whole thing. And so for me, it was kind of trying to be on when I could, and then having a ton of rest when I couldn't. And as far as the appearance, I just honestly, I had to get used to just being okay with not always looking great. And I look back at some of the pictures and oh my goodness. I mean, there's one event I did in St. Louis and I look at the pictures and I was doing autographs for, I mean, we were out there and nobody told me my wig was completely crooked. Like nobody told me. And I'm going through this whole day and these poor kids are probably thinking, what is going on? And I've just had to learn to laugh about it
Yeah.
because, hey, I'm here. And I know it's easy to say, it doesn't matter what my hair looks like. It doesn't matter that I don't have eyelashes. It matters. It does, because it's how you are feeling, and it's also your identity to some extent when
Exactly.
you look in the mirror and you don't recognize the person looking back, but you also have to give yourself a little bit of grace along the way.
Yeah. Thank you. That was such a beautiful answer. So you're also one of the people, like I said, who truly understands competition, the winning, the pressure, performance at the highest level, right? So when people use words like fight or battle or win around cancer. Do these words feel empowering to you, or can they sometimes place an unfair burden on patients, you think?
I think the words that we tie to our cancer experience are very personal to our own journey. So I think it's important to honor that. I mean, I know survivors that they want to be called thrivers, and they are. And then there's those that don't. Some talk about the battle or the fight. I think it's important to realize that there's not one way to do cancer. You do what works for you. You use the words that keep you moving forward. So it's what's helpful for you, and then that's the right one. I personally, I don't like to use the word win. I can understand the word as it relates to getting through portions of the journey or even being cancer free. I understand it, but the word win to me feels like an ending, a
Yeah.
finish line. And the cancer journey is not a finite race. It's that's kind of what feels right for me. It's that it's a journey and that it's just small steps along the way.
Thank you. I love your answer because I agree with that sentiment a lot because, at Overcome, we call our survivors, as you know, overcomers, because I feel when you use the word survivor, I feel like you're just surviving cancer. It's just giving too much power to the disease.
Yeah.
Versus when you say you're an overcomer, the word that you used is grace, that you're overcoming gracefully and you're moving on with your life one step at a time. You're enjoying life just the way you should while you are taking care of your treatment and your journey, as you said. So there are different ways to think about this whole experience, but I do feel that words sometimes matter, to put you in that frame of mind, in that in that psychology, so to speak, so that
Mhm.
it just brings you more hope and, I don't know, more peace,
Mm.
maybe, with the right usage of the word. So thank
Yeah, I agree.
yeah. So you've also recently been involved in conversations about biomarker education, which is so, so, so critical, and personalized ovarian cancer care. So for patients who feel overwhelmed, and I'm not using all the terms, but just terms like BRCA, HRD, folate receptor alpha, HER2, and the list goes on, right? So how do you encourage them to ask informed questions, need to become like scientists overnight? Because this, like, when I do these sessions with the doctors, I realize that every single like time and every 3 months there's so much that's coming out, which is a great thing, but it's
Yeah.
a lot to keep track of and to stay updated on. So what is your guidance?
It's a lot. It is overwhelming for me. Just, I mean, even just those few that you read, you cannot be a specialist on everything. And especially uh, when you get a diagnosis and a treatment plan, your other life didn't stop. You're
Yeah.
still dealing with all of the things that are going on, plus now you've got to learn all of these new things. It's a lot. So I would encourage women and their circle of support to ask a lot of questions and write things down. I would say write things down. I always ask for a pamphlet on anything I don't completely understand. I want the pamphlet because I know that I will forget everything the moment we walk out the door. And I'll go on to the other things that I'm worried about or the other things that I need to do. And so anything that I can get in writing from my care team is so important. And then I have time to digest and look at it and research it, as much as I'm interested in doing. But I think again, that also comes back to, it's critical when you're looking for these answers and you're trying to do some of this research and be informed. Um, Use reputable sources, double check them with your personal care team. It is great. Come in with a list of written questions for your team. That's fantastic. That way, that and then have someone with you who can help write things down. Do it through the patient portal, whatever that looks like. But knowledge is power. It's not supposed to overwhelm. It's not supposed to confuse. It's meant to simplify and help with understanding. So, again, it's not just researching in a vacuum, it's communicating with your care team and asking those questions.
Absolutely. And then, the reality remains that you have like 10 minutes or 15 minutes with the physician. They're always in and out. So it helps so much if you have those questions ahead of time so that you are not depending on your brain at that point in time to ask the questions that you have been wanting to ask. So a great point on that. So when you think about the women who are newly diagnosed today, you talked about searching online, but someone who's recently diagnosed, let's visualize her for a second. She's scared, she's searching online and wondering whether she can get through this. What would you want her to know in the first 24 hours after her diagnosis?
I think the first 24 to 48 hours are so challenging. And this question is maybe one of the hardest ones. And it's literally why I built my company. And we'll talk about that at some point. But on the medical side, I would say you've got to write things down. Two things: write things down and make sure you're bringing someone you trust with you to appointments. That's going to solve a lot of issues because to your point, it is confusing. It is overwhelming. It is stunning, and it's all happening at once. And your brain's going to go to mush at some point because it just is going to shut off. So, making sure that you have someone writing things down and remembering things that you can talk about later is so critical on kind of the medical side. For the first 24 to 48 hours, it is a new world, it's a new vocabulary just starting. And a lot of times you kind of want to circle the wagons and just um, kind of kind of draw in a bit and just kind of block everyone out. You don't know how to answer the question, how can I help? That you're going to get 50 times the first day people know, and you're not going to know what to say. And when you can't provide them with an answer, they might not ask again, not because they don't want to help, but for fear of bugging you or saying or doing something wrong. But I'll tell you this, and I want everyone watching to remember, whether you're a caregiver, whether you're a survivor, you will need that help. You will need that help, and you may need it for months. So if you don't know yet, you won't. Just answer something like, can you text me in a week when I have a better answer? Or if it's someone close and trustworthy, hey, I need one point person for communications. Can you be that? But making sure that you have kind of a ready answer that you can just kind of send out. On the non-medical side, I think it's really important that you understand that the medical side is going to take care of itself, but most of your treatment life, most of your journey, it happens at home. It happens outside the clinic walls when you really don't have anyone to ask questions to. So um, your life keeps going even though you've had this diagnosis and you're on treatment. So accept that you will both need and you will want that help. It is so hard to ask for, but gosh, when you get over that mental hump of I don't want to bother anyone to it's a blessing because they want to help me. It's a blessing for them to be able to and for me to provide them with that. If you can kind of get to that mental shift, things don't get easy. So many people are going to ask. So I would say there are three things that I always tell people. Number one, you need to set up a communication structure because you don't want to be answering a zillion texts all day, especially as you start treatment and you don't feel good. So use something like Caring Bridge for communication, or ask a friend, spouse, a family member, someone to be that point person that can handle all the incoming, right? And just handle it in a simple. Second thing is, which is kind of important that I was not aware of. I didn't start a GoFundMe page, but a lot of people do. And some people start it for you without kind of without asking first, but do your homework before setting up a GoFundMe page to make sure that this doesn't risk your eligibility for certain other types of assistance. A lot of people don't understand that. So just do your research on that. And then the third thing is consider a Salto Health registry, and we'll talk about this later. But with complete disclosure, this is my company. I started to help organize care during the cancer journey, and that's going to be really important because as you start treatment, a lot of times you don't even know what those non medical needs are, but you find out very quickly. So, if you can organize that portion of the support and easily send that link to people who say, how can I help? It just makes everything work so much easier.
So
So, those are kind of the three things I would look for.
thank you for mentioning. These are all such great points. Thank you for taking the time for, and to walk us through. Now, as we wrap up, I want to say that two things. One is that you want to celebrate you because you are celebrating 15 years of overcoming this month. And this is so amazing because June is also Cancer Survivors Month. So this is the perfect timing, so to speak. And as an athlete, you have to have precision everywhere. So you also showed your precision by doing your 15th milestone on the Cancer Survivors Month, right? So congratulations for that and for inspiring all of us through your journey. Now, you talked about Salto Health. Right before this, I know that's the way you have decided to give back to the community in the ways that you have seen the gaps, in the ways that you have walked this pathway for others. So take us on this journey. Tell us more about Salto Health. Which gaps, have you seen that your initiative now will, plug for all our Ovarcomer community? Tell us about whether our Ovarcomers can use it across the nation, beyond the nation. Tell us everything about this fantastic initiative that you have.
Absolutely. Right now, we're US based, so anywhere in the United States. What we've done is basically created a registry so that you can go on just like a baby registry or a wedding registry, but we have highly curated products and services. And so if you're newly diagnosed, you have no idea what you need, right? So you can go on and you can see, okay, for chemotherapy, here's a lot of the products that I might need and that are available and that are trusted in the cancer space. And so you can start to kind of form this list, and we've made it very easy. It's absolutely free. You can just set up a registry and put items in that registry, and then you just send that link to people who want to help. And it makes it so easy. It's just a really simple answer to cancer survivors wondering, what do I need, what exists, instead of having to go on the scavenger hunt wondering what works. We've put it all in one place. And then with all of those who want to know, how can I help, I just would do anything to help, they have a link and they can look at whatever you've put on the registry. And what we've seen is over 95% of people, when asked, they said, absolutely, we would buy something. In fact, we would prefer to purchase something off of a patient's registry because we know that's exactly what is needed. We don't have to guess. Is it flowers? Is it a casserole? What do we do? Well, they're telling us what they need specific for that journey. And it can be anything from products for surgery. It can be wigs and head covers, skincare, as you mentioned. Your skin changes. There's items for specific for radiation, for chemotherapy, comfort items, hydration, and nausea support. I mean, the list goes on. And we even added gift cards because we want to make sure for people that need to pay for gas or they need childcare, they need these other just services and things to support their everyday life, because everyday life doesn't stop because you were diagnosed with cancer. And so my passion for Salto Health is really to close that gap, not only supplying the products that can help you during treatment and during the cancer journey, but also to provide that connection, because cancer can be very isolating. we isolate ourselves. Other people can isolate us because they don't know what to do, or don't want to say the wrong thing. We want Salto Health, and it is a connector. It helps bring people on the same page. Now, that means that you can connect with people, the survivor, and all those who want to help, but you also don't have to answer a zillion questions every day. It doesn't have to be awkward conversations about why you need this or why you need that, or, well, where do I get that? No, it's just right there. And it allows people to have a little bit of a glimpse into the treatment process
Mhm.
in kind of a, on the sidelines, but just understand that there's a lot more that goes into it than just a blanket or a casserole, that
Yeah.
there are things that people need every single day that can help the path be a little bit easier.
I love this a lot because, this, like you said, you are bridging a very important gap between, what we as outside of the periphery of treatment, we as in caregivers or friends or family members, we want to help, but we may not have the right answer to what you may exactly need or want at that point in time. And you are probably extremely fatigued and just like with all other treatment options and the conversations and visits and blood draws that's going on, you don't have the energy to pick up the phone one more time and or text another person one more time that this is what I need or want or etc. But if they can go to the website and look up the things that are available and just kind of tell them that this is my registry, these are the things that I would really appreciate having while going through my treatment. Wouldn't that be so easy for everybody? I just want to quickly mention that we are also partnering with, we're very proud to partner with Shannon on this fantastic initiative that she has. And we have put and more information on our website on how you can go to Salto Health and kind of, we'll also put together the link here so that you get it and you can just kind of link to it and just go and browse and see the things. And also, if you have any suggestions that maybe perhaps Shannon has missed on her website and that you would like to add and to see added, let us know. And we will make sure that that we are on it to help you as you go along the journey. So Shannon, just bringing it all back to your journey, your celebrity status as an athlete, and then recovering and giving back through the Salto Health. What message of overcoming would you like to share with everyone listening today that that resonates with all of us?
I think the one that I always go back to, because there's so much, right? There's so much, give yourself some grace along the way is so important. And every step, keep looking for that next positive step, even if it's really, really small. But I think that the one that I always come back to is there is strength. There is strength in not only accepting help when it's offered, but in asking for help when it's needed. And if you can write that down and remember it every single day, whether you're going to an appointment or you're dealing with family or friends, if you can remember that, it's going to be so essential in your treatment and recovery. And it's going to be less isolating because you're going to have your team there surrounding you and walking with you every step of the way.
Thank you so much, Shannon. I mean, you are absolutely, you're not only extraordinary in what you do, but you have an extraordinary passion and heart that shows each time you talk to us. And I am so grateful that we were able to share your time today to learn about more about your journey and also this beautiful initiative that you have in place, which is named as Salto Health. Tell us why you named it before we wrap up. I'm curious about that. What is the
I
name?
love
That
it. So I have a whole write up on our website about it because I kept getting asked that question. But Salto is a somersault in gymnastics, so a little nod to my gymnastics background. But when I was thinking of the cancer experience, I kept coming back to that moment of diagnosis when my stomach just flipped, when my whole world turned upside down. And so I thought Salto kind of encapsulates that, but it's also movement. And so it's that it can be that forward movement of finding that next step, finding your footing along this journey.
Fabulous. This is so meaningful. That name in itself, I mean, I was wondering what this name, there has to be some meaning to it. So thank you for explaining that to us. And thank you so much for your time. Grateful to have you with us. And also congratulations again on your 15 years. And we all wish and, like send you all our warmest greetings that you keep overcoming and keep inspiring all of us. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. And thank you for all that you do in the cancer community. It is so meaningful.
Thank you, Shannon. Thank you for joining us to K.A.R.E. We'll be back with our next episode with our next featured guest very soon. Until then, you keep inspiring and keep caring. Thank you and bye.